right, so with all this news swirling around the New York Giants, we thought we would bring in our Giants beat reporter, Dan Duggan, who's always on the ground with the team, giving us the latest. So, Dan, you knew this was coming. You wrote about it last week. You said the Daniel Jones chapter has closed in New York, so the decision has finally been made to bench him. Not only bench him, but to make him the third-string quarterback, which tells you their plans here in the future, which is basically just put him on ice. It's over for Daniel Jones. So my first question for you is, what is next for this franchise?
Yeah, I mean, I was ahead of the curve. I benched him during that Panthers game. Brian Daboll didn't agree, but after he threw that interception, the first one in the red zone, I was like, that's enough, pull him, and I was proven wrong. I was a little premature on that, but yeah, it's certainly no surprise. Where do they go from there? They tried to recapture all that Tommy DeVito magic from last year, I guess. I mean, 7 games is a long time to just kind of get through. Now, it was necessary to pull the Band-Aid off here with Daniel Jones. The performance speaks for itself, 3-13, last 16 starts. But that injury guarantee was looming. So you couldn't justify continuing to run him out there. I mean, they got another home game. I think the place would revolt if they had to see him come out with the starters on Sunday. But yeah, I mean, listen, like the way Dave was talking about creating a spark with Tommy DeVito, look, we all kind of, we look back, we remember the celebration. It was fun. It wasn't particularly great play. I mean, if you really go back, they beat the Commanders, they beat the Patriots. He did have a good game on Monday Night Football against the Packers. The defense created 12 takeaways in those 3 wins. I'm not sure they're going to recreate that. So, I mean, they're in a bad spot. I mean, this is what happens when you give a quarterback $160 million and within not even 2 years, you're pulling the ripcord. Like, there's not usually going to be a good, soft landing spot. So they jumped over Drew Lock, went to Tommy. I mean, listen, I don't think it's going to end well. I mean, nothing has really gone well. It'd be a major reversal if somehow this is the button that they press that actually goes right.
So, Dan, why in the world? I went to Missouri. We're like the best journalism school in America. We got some good quarterbacks in the league, including your backup, Drew Lock. And Joe Schoen signs him to a $5 million deal. He's heavily incentive-laden to make some incentives if he plays. Why in the world did they not play this guy? Because clearly, I'm biased, but he gives them a better shot to win, right?
Yeah, I've been wrestling with that question. That's, one Daboll did not really provide a ton of insight into. My thought on it, and, you got to kind of put your tinfoil hat on when you cover this team because there's a lot of stuff going on kind of beneath the surface. I look at it like this. They signed him. Tommy DeVito was here on a minimum contract. You could have had the cheapest backup in the world. They obviously showed no interest in that. All spring, because I've seen this nonsense that Drew Lock was injured during camp. That's why they don't trust him. He was the first string quarterback all spring. Let's not forget that because Daniel Jones was rehabbing. So he's got plenty of reps in this offense, throwing to Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton, whatever. So let's throw that nonsense out the window. I think what happened is he played a little bit in the preseason and did get hurt and looked terrible. They put him in the fourth quarter of that Eagles game. It's 28-3. Now, you can speak to this. It's not a great situation to go in cold as a quarterback. But he looked terrible. I'm thinking that spooked them, and they said, if we go to our $5 million backup here and he looks terrible, and again, they got Tampa on Sunday, and then they go to Dallas on Thursday. So you're committing to whoever it is for 2 games, one being on national stage. If he looks awful in those 2 games, what does that say about your evaluation skills, your coaching skills? At least with DeVito, they can sell this, the whole spark thing. And if it doesn't go well, it's like, all right, man, we took a shot. We couldn't rediscover the spark. And then we go to Lock. I think they're just trying to manage like self-preservation as best as possible. Again, because they're in a terrible spot. There's no good way out. But I have to think if they're spooked by how bad Lock has looked in these minimal opportunities, and they're just thinking if we put him out there, it could be disaster, and they can't afford a disaster with how tenuous things are getting.
Do you think they're tanking, though? Like, when I first saw it this morning, and it's the elephant in the room, no one ever wants to talk about it, and we talked about it right in the middle of it happening on our Fox show, and the first thing that came to my mind was, like, tell me you're tanking without telling me you're tanking. Because Drew Lock is a legit quarterback. Not that Tommy DeVito's not. I agree there's some magic there to be had. But are they trying to like save their jobs by like, oh, we're going to draft Shadur Sanders. Oh, we're going to draft Cam Ward. They're 2-8. Like that's what I got out of it.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's why I've been wrestling with it. But that's the one thing I can kind of safely rule out. That's just not how John Mara would ever sign off on operating. It's funny. I mean, I don't want to give you guys an explicit label on this podcast today, but he came down to the press room. Only time he's ever done it in my 9 years on the beat, 2017, after they benched Eli Manning and all that. And he said something about, I heard we're benching him because we're tanking. So that's bullshit. I'll never do that. So, like, again, that's as strongly as he can say it. He's not someone who just throws curses around in press conferences. So they're not going to actively tank. And listen, I think it'd be crazy, unless Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll have gotten, like, ironclad. You're coming back no matter what. I don't think they're in position to tank. If this thing goes 2-15, John Mara's vote of confidence from like week 7, that's not going to carry you through if he's sitting there these next 4 home games. They go 0-9 at home. They get swept in the division. All of these things are on the table. I can't see any way they would feel comfortable saying we're going to play the lesser quarterback. So that's why I go back to, I think they genuinely believe DeVito gives them a better chance to win. That might be flawed logic. Again, it's between 2 bad options in my opinion.
I'm gonna let you get out of here because Scoop City, we're not the vote of confidence podcast. We're the kiss of death the kiss of death podcast here. So we have a hard time believing that, despite the fact that John Mara said these guys are safe. What's just your gut feeling on what you think the future of these guys are, just from being around them and just knowing how this team operates?
Right. So I'll give my cop-out answer here. There's 7 weeks, a lot can change, because I know you mentioned this point yourself. I made it too. When he gave that vote of confidence, my mind immediately went back to 2017 when they made the unusual step. John Mara and Steve Tisch sent out a statement basically saying, no decision will be made till after the season. No more than 3 weeks later, Ben McAdoo and Jerry Reese and his 2 Super Bowl rings were kicked to the curb. Joe Judge, it wasn't an official statement, but I believe it was Adam Schefter. It was a national insider reported on, I think, the second to last game, the morning of, the Sunday splash. Joe Judge is safe, not going anywhere. 2 weeks later, he's gone. So, I think we know you can't put too much stock in that. I definitely believe his statement when he said we're not making any changes in season. If that would be pointless. The time to do it would have been the bye. That's passed. There's nothing that can really happen over the next 7 weeks that results in getting fired in season. But he also said, I don't anticipate making any changes after the season. Now, that word there, anticipate, could be doing a lot of work, and he might also have not anticipated not winning another game after making that vote of confidence. So, again, that's why I say, everything's on the table. If you go 2-15, the locker room inevitably will, fall apart if that type of season unfolds. All those are the types of things that add up. So I think if they just can quietly stink and get to the finish line and be 5-12 and not have controversies, they'll probably bring him back because that's what John Mara's stated desire is to do. But if this thing goes off the rails, I don't think anybody's safe.
Thanks so much for joining Scoop City. I think we're all aligned here. I think we all are kind of calling it what it is, which is basically if it's really, really bad football over the next few weeks, I think this is just going to be a tough sell for ownership, knowing the direction that they want to take this thing to. So thanks so much for hanging out with us here on Scoop City.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for tuning into Scoop City. If you want to hear more, make sure you like and subscribe. We drop our new episodes every Tuesday and Friday.